All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of Jesus for Mormons. I am Kai Van Leuven. I spent over 30 years in the Mormon Church, and this is what I did after leaving the church.
I'm Di Beals. I'm a pastor at Venture Church and your friend. Glad to be along for the ride.
All right. Perfect. So let's pick up this story. And today we're going to be talking about sunk costs, S-U-N-K, sunk costs. And that's in our lives, we have opportunities to do a lot of different things. I've run my own business for, how many years? 18 years now of my life. And sunk costs is something that goes along with that.
Yep,
that goes along with running a business, but also our investment of time. In a church that requires you to give of your time, talents, and everything that you possess, there is a cost. There's a cost to being Mormon. There's a cost to being in that church. And there's this idea of the sunk cost fallacy. Now, I'm just going to read the definition. How about that? Let's make it a little easier.
Do it.
So the sunk cost fallacy is the phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of action because they have invested heavily in it, even when it's clear that abandonment would be more beneficial.
Wow.
All right. So you just keep pouring money and time and effort into something, right? When you know that you should get out. And I think that a lot of members find themselves in that. Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormons, find themselves in this sunk cost fallacy. They may think, there are some things wrong with the church, but I'm just going to keep going for it. I don't really know what else is out there. And then you have people like me that have the sunk cost reality. And that's really what the name of this is the sunk cost reality. So that's where you look back at the time that you put into the church and everything that you put into it, and you realize that that was a sunk cost in your life. I think that's really hard to say and to talk about. I don't think that is like something that I take lightly is these sunk costs that I put into the church. In previous episodes, I talked about tithing and getting the tax statement that shows how much you gave to the church, to the Mormon Church throughout the year. And I remember how that kind of got underneath my skin a little bit, that I had done that. So we're going to talk about a few of these sunk costs and talk about really are they truly sunk costs? What do those look like?
Okay.
And maybe is there positive? Is there positive and is there a negative? So the first one, I actually think the first sunk cost that people have is their callings that they had in the church. I actually don't really feel that that's a huge sunk cost, at least for me. I looked at my callings. I looked at, I was the early morning seminary teacher. Every single day, I was getting to interact with kids and getting to breathe life into them. I was also teaching them about the church and doing that, which I saw as a really positive thing at the time. Did it take a ton of time? Yes. I think it took away a lot. I think that a lot of times when people have resentment towards their callings that they had in the church, it's because it may have taken away from their family.
Yeah.
It may have taken away from a relationship. It may have made them too busy to interact with people. And so for those people, I am sympathetic.
Sure.
For me personally, I actually enjoyed a lot of my callings and most of them. And I really did feel that I was doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people who leave the church, want to look at what they did in the church as being all negative. And, I think there is definitely a place for that. But I think there's also a place to say, I was trying my best. I was really trying, and I was trying to impact people the right way. When I was a the gospel doctrine teacher. So the gospel doctrine teacher is like all the adults in the room. You're the teacher of that class. There's like 100 adults in there.
That's bigger than most churches in America.
Yeah, there isn't 100 now, but there were 100 then.
Wow.
Ouch. And I liked teaching people and interacting and engaging with people. Now I look back on what I did teach them, and I cringe a little bit because it wasn't a true like history. It was very whitewashed, and so those parts of me bother me.
Yeah.
That I feel like now I wasn't honest, but I can honestly look in the mirror and say, hey, I tried to teach people, what I thought was correct at the time.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one. I think callings, right? That's a sunk cost. And pretty much every active person in the church has a calling. I don't know if you knew that, Di. Maybe.
I think you've told me that maybe off the microphone, but I don't know much beyond that.
Okay. So that's a thing. And there are kind of, they won't say this in the church, but there are more important higher, just
more influence. You have to have more knowledge, more trustworthy.
Sure. Yeah. And I wouldn't say I had super high callings, but I also wouldn't say that they were super low, whatever. But I was very involved. All right. We are going to go to number 2, which is tithing. Oh, man.
I'm surprised you didn't lead with that one. You went for the softball first, and now you're at the baseball.
No, I'm going to be honest with you, Di. I don't care that much.
Okay, that's
about
good.
Tithing.
That's
good. Yeah, I don't think. I think my heart was right.
Yeah.
I think what I was trying to do was right. Now, could I have given it to a better organization? When I say better, I mean one that needed it.
Yeah.
Right? Like one where I really believed in the mission and I believed in what they were doing, and they actually needed it to like help push, something forward that I believed in. I added up how much I gave to the Mormon Church. Oh my gosh.
In how long? Because I know
over my whole lifetime.
Right. So do you start tithing as a child or at a certain point?
Yeah. Once you're baptized. So 8 years old. That's when you start on the train.
You start tithing from your allowance?
Start tithing on whatever.
Okay.
You mow the lawn, you get $10.
And you can go back and
I haven't not gone back that far.
Okay.
But I estimated. So it's an estimate from like adulthood.
Okay.
So like since I started filing taxes.
Okay.
Right. So I gave almost it pays me. I gave almost $100,000.
Wow.
Of US American. That's not pesos. Yeah. And I mean, I think I gave it with, and like tithing is a big thing. You're a pastor.
Yeah.
You understand, like tithing is a big, you're asking people to give of their money. I didn't give it for the wrong reason. I didn't, at times I might have felt a little guilty and did it, or,
Obligated.
Obligated is maybe the right term. But I gave a ton. I'm somebody that I really don't believe that money is that important. So I give, it doesn't really, I don't know.
You would have given it somewhere.
Maybe. I mean, I won't say I'm that righteous, but I just think that it's just money. It's just stuff, right? Like, it bothers me. I wish I would have given it somewhere else, but it's just money, right?
Okay.
Like it doesn't haunt me like other things do.
How many sunk costs are on your list, Kai?
There are 5.
Do they increase in?
Oh, they increase
intensity and emotion, and
they increase in intensity and emotion. I'm just not a material person.
Okay.
So I don't really care about money.
So it could matter more to someone else, but this isn't one that just destroys you.
Yeah, definitely could bother other people a lot more. Okay, this is the third one, is one that you really go to in crisis, I think. You look at the missed opportunities for you to connect like with your community or connect with people around you. Like I look at my high school experience. Mm-hmm. I never drank. I never, did all the other things that maybe high schoolers are doing. And I think you look back and you say like, oh, I just think I missed out. Mm-hmm. And that definitely does bother me a lot more than tithing. Definitely. Just that I felt that I was believing in something so much, and that led me to make decisions of how I interacted with people, how I viewed people,
right?
How like just different relationships that I had.
Did it segregate you? Did you feel segregated from the majority of people?
Yeah, and I wanted to be kind of in with a, I wouldn't say necessarily a super popular crowd, but I did want to be in with a crowd and be accepted in that. I remember, gosh, this is maybe kind of an awkward story, but I remember prom. Me and my wife, me and my girlfriend at the time, but she became my wife. We like already talked about getting married. I mean, we're like
in high school.
Oh yeah. So it's prom. I go over to one of my friend's house. Like everyone there is staying the night there. Everyone's drinking. And I'm just like, and I felt so not included, right? In this experience, right? And I felt that way a lot. And like a lot of experience, I felt like being Mormon kind of cut me off from my peers a little bit. And I'm not trying to say that that like me getting drunk and spending the night at someone's house is necessarily a good thing. But when you live for a religion, and then that's kind of, then you don't believe in it at all anymore, you look back on those experiences and you're like,
I missed it all for nothing.
I missed it all for absolutely nothing. Like that's definitely a sunk cost, and I don't necessarily believe that's a good reason to like look back, but I know a lot of people are resentful, and I'm kind of resentful for missing out on some experiences that I could have had. Okay, so then we're gonna go to the fourth one, which is my mission, and I definitely like if we're talking about things that I truly feel are sunk cost and like really hurt. It's the fact that I went on a mission.
Yeah.
And that
2 years.
2 years.
Not getting an education, not working, not getting married.
Yeah.
Not pursuing a career, not moving on in life.
Yeah. So the story of my mission is actually really the story between me and my wife. So like I said, in high school, we decided that we were going to get married. We were engaged at 18. Like she already had a ring on her finger. We were really set up to get married. I remember telling my dad, hey, I'm not going on a mission. I'm getting married. And my dad really put a ton of pressure on me. I don't feel like I'm putting my dad on blast because he wrote about it in a book.
Whoa.
And published it. Yeah, that is what it is.
That he
really put a lot of pressure on me to go on a mission as opposed to getting married. And so I went, and it was just a really, really hard and bad experience. And it's really one that still kind of affects me and my wife's relationship today. I mean, which is crazy. And we talk about it. There are times where I am just driving in the car and I just feel like terrible about the fact that I chose the church over my spouse. And so we're doing this on video. So, hey, I have something for us. So Di, I'm going to have you.
No, it's not fan mail for Jesus for Mormons.
It is. And Di, I am not going to let you take these because these are the letters that I wrote to my wife while on a mission.
That is amazing. And she kept them all. You wrote a lot of letters.
Yeah.
It's like once a week?
This is like every day.
Wow.
Yeah. I wrote to my wife all the time. And I'll tell you, Di, these letters are like super sad.
Oh.
Like they are like, I can't read them. Allison can't. Those are my letters. She has a stack. She had a stack this big that she threw away. It's honestly like so sad. Like you read, like I read them and I'm like, here are two like super sad and depressed people that want to be together, you know? And yeah, like I dug, so we're clearing out our house and I pulled these from the attic because we're trying to get rid of everything in our home to move. And I just came across all these like last Thursday and I'm like, it makes you so sad to think about two people that desperately want to be together and the church is saying no, and my social structure, my family is really pushing really hard for me to go. And so, yeah, I think it's just like, and people might say, wow, it still affects your day. Yeah. Like me and my wife still, we didn't have that honeymoon period. We had a coming back and really getting to know each other. And then all this hurt kind of put on top. And yeah, I mean, we've been married for, oh dear heavens, 14 years. And still there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of hurt and there's a lot of bad, that just comes from it. So I would say that is definitely
a big costly.
Yeah, it's super costly. I feel like that's why I put it so much higher. And now I look at it. So these aren't necessarily I put my mission. The last one is just relationships and how those really tank after you leave the church. I'm talking about my family, members that I have in the church, or members in the church that I know, just how all of those became incredibly strained after leaving. And that's also a sunk cost of leaving. You leave.
You leave your community. You leave the fabric of your life, the people you do life with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like super, and you just go, right? Like it's so hard to even like have conversation with those people. Even now I'm starting to kind of creep back into like, having normal conversations with people in my ward that I knew. But it's so hard and it's so awkward to do that. It's really sad. So those relationships that you used to have, they really are like super strained. And so, and I look at me and my wife's relationship and how that's really hurt. And so I think that those are all like really important things for people to look at. And I guess I've been like investing for such a long time that sometimes you just have to realize like when you've just, the cost, like it's sunk, it's never coming back. Like the reality of that, and I think it helps to heal. If you just realize, hey, that 2 years that you put in, like take the best that you can from it.
Yeah.
Those callings, take the best that you can from it. The tithing that you gave, think the most positively about it. And then just, you have to move on, I think, and realize that it's gone.
Well, if we put it into financial terms, it's maybe less emotional for people to think if you're bleeding money into something that isn't returning to you or isn't the right direction to go or isn't the right thing, or like I was giving you the example earlier of Brandon and I owning a sandwich shop and how now I can never walk into a sandwich shop without thinking they're going under. I can feel it because you can't sell enough sandwiches to make it. And there had to come a point where we realized we can want this to work all we want. And we could just keep putting money into the shortfall every month, but it's better to just cut our losses. There's a lot less emotion for us, at least. I mean, for some people, losing a business is incredibly traumatizing, but for us, it was a lot less emotion to just say, this business didn't work. We lost our shorts on it, but we're young, we'll recover. Then this is my whole world, my family, all my relationships. I've done this my whole life. I've been raising my children here. We're going to have to start over in every category. That's a big cost to count as well.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll put it this way. I'm calm and collected here. After I kind of was going through these letters, I think that the nuclear Kai came out. The not so happy, I just, and I don't know if that's okay, but I was just so bothered by that. This is a cost of
time,
being in the church.
Time you'll never get back.
Time I'll never get back. A relationship that I think should be a really strong relationship. And I also have to take personal responsibility. Maybe I could be a better spouse. Maybe I could be a better husband. And that may have made our relationship stronger and maybe gotten through these. And so I do take personal responsibility for that. But at the same time, we had this huge thing, being separated for 2 years, only being able to communicate through, letters and do that. And just how much of a burden that is that we still kind of carry around. I've talked with other people who have left the church, and they say that their marriage is not so good. Not necessarily directed towards the mission, but just towards the church, and how they weren't able to really communicate their feelings because they worried that the other person would leave them or would judge them or other things. So I don't know. I think that there's a huge sunk cost that I just wish I could do what I'm doing on the way out of this interview, which is take all these letters and throw them in the garbage. I wish that we could. My wife, when she saw me take this out of the house, she said, number one, don't let anyone read these letters. she said, second, what's your plans? And I said, there's no way they're coming back inside our house. I'm just going to trash them, because there's just so much heaviness and weight that kind of comes with that. I would encourage anyone to, if you kind of have those feelings, do what you think is best with your stuff, but just, gosh, I would say just put it behind you. It's gone. Like those years that you spent, just as fast as you can, put them behind you and try to move forward. I honestly feel that way. I just think it will be for your benefit. Yeah. Honestly. So that is that's kind of my thought. I want to ask you this question, Di. Can our walk with God also come with some sunk costs? And what are the best ways to deal with those? Oh man, you didn't even warn me. I didn't warn you ahead of time. Oh no. Sunk costs. I think in the way that you lined those things out, yes. If I'm understanding how you're asking this question, I can definitely think of times that I have not been included in things because I am a pastor. I'm not invited to things where people think I'm not going to approve of what happens there. And I think in some ways I appreciate that, but in a lot of ways I think, let me make that decision. And also I've seen the world. So I do think there for me as a pastor, I think there are probably even more, but just as a follower of Jesus, I think there are, for the average good-hearted person that just wants to do something for the Lord, we do tithe or give or serve or, try and bless people around us or take care of them or meet their needs or, we serve our community quite a bit here at Venture, and we believe in that. And those are costs of time and energy. And there have certainly been times I have, someone's had a need and I have left my house when my kids were there and they probably wished I would have hung around. I can remember them
at some points I had people that would call me regularly, and they would hear my phone ring and go, "Oh no, is it so-and-so?" They can just see my phone and know that's the person that calls, and she talks for an hour, or, see you in an hour, Mom. So sure, I think I'm responsible for making those reasonable and maybe having good boundary lines. But yeah, I think anything valuable has costs. They're not all wasted costs.
Sure.
So I know by sunk, you're maybe more on the wasted side, but they are costs.
Sure.
And I do think we can go too far, and then they might become sunk costs. But I don't have regrets. I try not to live without regrets. If I've invested too much and think I wasted my time on that person who turned out to be, a not good person, or didn't listen to the advice I gave them and still left their spouse or cheated, that's not on me. I guess that could be a sunk cost, but I just choose not to view it that way. That's an investment I made. I chose to give my time, and that person's responsible for how they walk it out. I don't know. How did I do?
I thought you did well. Okay. I mean, especially for me kind of blindsiding you. Sorry about that. It's written down on the paper. No, but I didn't share that with you. Yeah, I think I look at a lot of these things, and I look at, like, where was my heart and where was my intention when I was doing these things? Like, I think I would like to think, and I'm not really somebody who blows a lot of hot air, but I would like to think that my heart was really in the right place.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to do these things because I really believed in the cause. And I guess I don't want people to feel a lot of guilt for what they did put into the church. If they left and they're sad and they feel resentment towards the church because of that, I would just say, hey, you put it in for the right reasons. Like, you put in time for the right reasons, and it's not your history. It's not the church's history. It's not the problems that you found within the church that you have to take ownership of.
Yeah.
You just have to take ownership of what you did and what your intentions were.
Right.
So I think that's kind of also what I meant by the question of, how do you deal with this? Like, how does somebody who went on a mission, sealed in the temple, done all of these things within the church, how do they reconcile all of those things? How do they look at themselves in the mirror and say, I'm a good person. I didn't just spread this, How do they reconcile that? And I think you do by saying, I did it all for the right reasons. Yeah. I did it all with the knowledge that I had at the time.
Well, that is part A. And I think part B is the ownership of what you know now. And that certainly doesn't mean you have to, call every person you ever taught or shared something with. But as you run across people, I know you. There is an ownership of, I did the best I could, and now I've come to realize that there were a lot of things I didn't know. So I think the ownership of it is that goes a long way for people to see that you have the maturity to say, I missed it. I didn't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are. Yeah, I think that a lot of people who are in the church, their intentions are good. And when they do all these things, I think their intentions are good. And I think that they should, like, people who have left the church should give themselves maybe a little bit more credit, a little bit more grace in this situation, where they just say, hey, that isn't really where I wish I would have spent my time.
Yeah. Beating yourself up what's it going to get you?
Yeah.
And I think we've already in this podcast addressed the heavy topics of grief, and that's real. And it takes time to work your way through the grieving process, but an entire lifetime of beating yourself up just has no benefit to it.
Sure.
So I love that you said in one of your pieces of your story that, you loved the teaching of kids or teaching in general. And so when you left the Mormon Church, you started coaching. There's something innately inside of you that wanted to give to other people, and you just found a different place to give it. And I think that's a beautiful thing. The other thing that sticks in my head, and maybe I want to be careful saying this because I think this is maybe the average person would think, well, that's easy for you to say, but in general, there's this phrase that we all know that is cut your losses. And I think for the person that is deeply, deeply in the cost indebtedness, where they feel like I've sunk far too much of myself or my time, or I'm in too deep, there maybe needs to be that moment of truth of, you're only going to give more. You're only going to spend more of your heart or your time or your community or be more indebted. Cut your losses. That there just comes a point where you just have to say, no more. I can't give myself to something that I don't believe in.
Yeah, definitely. And mentally take a break and cut your losses as well.
Yeah.
Right? Don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
So well, I think I think we did this topic justice.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, of talking about sunk costs. These are all getting thrown away. There's no way they're getting back to my house. I just don't think that it's something that I want to keep holding on to, and have in my life. But it is a reality. It's a reality that they exist, that I spent 2 years of my life and all of those things. And so, I mean, that it kind of is what it is, as they say. But, well, thanks you guys for joining us on another episode. If you, want to talk about your sunk cost.
People have questions or they want to share their story. Yep.
If you want to share your story, I would love to hear that. I think that, there's a lot of people out there, because I talk to a lot of people who have left the church, a lot of ex-Mormons. Feel free to reach out to us. So we have a email, and it is jesusformormons@gmail.com. Reach out to us, tell us your story, comment in the comments below, and until next time.
Okay.